Elena St. James had everything money could buy, until the day she accused her black driver of theft and destroyed his life with a single lie. But when a blizzard traps them together in the wilderness, the Ice Queen is forced to face a truth more terrifying than freezing to death. The man she treated like dirt is the only one who can save her. What she doesn't know yet is that surviving the storm is just the beginning, because the real battle will be against her own family, her cruel fiancé, and the twisted world that taught her to see people like Marcus as invisible. By the time the snow melts, one of them will lose everything, and the other will discover what it truly means to be seen. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Because this story of redemption, forbidden love, and poetic justice is about to change everything you thought you knew about second chances. The snow fell softly against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elena St. James's penthouse. She opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling, feeling nothing. 26 years old today. The number felt hollow. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Mom. Of course. Happy birthday, sweetheart, Patricia St. James said, though her tone suggested she was reading from a script. I've emailed you the updated schedule for the board meetings this week. Don't forget the Vanderbilt luncheon on Thursday. And please tell me you're not wearing that blue dress again. It photographs terribly. Elena sat up, pulling the silk sheets around her. Good morning to you too, Mom. I'm just trying to help you present yourself properly. You're marrying Grant Sterling in 6 months. Image matters now more than ever. The words landed like stones in her chest. Elena looked at the enormous engagement ring on her finger. It was beautiful, cold, perfect. I know, Mom. Good, I'll see you at dinner next week. Don't be late. The line went dead. Elena stood and walked to her closet, row after row of designer clothes, all perfectly organized by color. She pulled out a cream cashmere sweater and tailored wool pants, armor for the day ahead. As she dressed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, blonde hair styled in loose waves, green eyes that used to sparkle but now just stared back. She looked expensive. She looked exactly like her mother wanted. She grabbed her vintage Chanel purse and the heavy wool coat that cost more than most people made in a month. The diamond tennis bracelet her grandmother left her gleamed on her wrist. At least something today connected her to real love, even if it was just a memory. The elevator descended 40 stories. Elena's heels clicked across the marble lobby. The doorman tipped his hat. She didn't know his name. Outside, the Chicago morning was gray and freezing. The limo waited at the curb, engine running, exhaust creating small clouds in the cold air. Marcus Thorne stood beside the back door, dressed in his black driver's uniform. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and hands that looked strong enough to rebuild an engine or gentle enough to hold something fragile. He'd been her driver for 8 months. She knew almost nothing about him. Happy birthday, Miss St. James, he said quietly, opening the door. Elena brushed past him without responding. She settled into the leather seat and immediately pressed the button for the partition. The glass wall rose between them with a soft hum. She didn't see Marcus's jaw tighten, didn't see him take a slow breath before closing her door and walking around to the driver's seat. The limo pulled smoothly into traffic. Elena stared at her phone. A text from Grant appeared. Babe, have to cancel lunch. Big deal closing. You understand? Dinner sometime this week? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to say no. She wanted to say she was tired of being second to his business deals. Instead, she typed, Of course, good luck, of course. The limo turned onto Michigan Avenue. Elena pressed the intercom button. You're taking the long way. she said sharply. Marcus's voice came through the speaker, calm and even. Traffic is backed up on Lakeshore Drive, Miss St. James. This route will be faster. I didn't ask for your opinion. I asked you to take the usual route. Silence. Then, yes, ma'am. She saw his hands on the steering wheel through the partition. His grip was tight. Something flickered in her chest. Guilt, maybe. But she pushed it away. She was paying him to drive, not to question her. The limo changed direction. 20 minutes later, they pulled up in front of Cartier. Elena had a necklace being repaired, a small emerald piece that belonged to her grandmother. She grabbed her purse. Wait here, don't idle the gas, it's wasteful. Marcus nodded once. She saw something flash in his eyes. Exhaustion? Frustration? She didn't wait to find out. Inside the boutique, the staff greeted her warmly. They brought her champagne she didn't want and showed her the repaired necklace. Beautiful. Perfect. Meaningless. She signed the receipt and stepped back out into the cold. Marcus was standing beside the car, waiting. He opened the door without a word. Elena slid inside, and the limo merged back into the slow-moving traffic. She checked her emails, responded to her mother's calendar update, scrolled through photos of Grant's latest business trip to New York. He was smiling in every picture, surrounded by men in suits who all looked the same. Then she glanced down at her wrist. Her heart stopped. The bracelet was gone. Elena's breath caught. She checked her other wrist, though she knew she'd only been wearing it on one. She dug through her purse, dumping the contents onto the seat. Lipstick, wallet, keys, breath mints. No bracelet. Her grandmother's bracelet. The only thing she owned that felt like love instead of obligation. Panic turned to something sharper. She thought back. She'd had it when she got into the car this morning. She'd checked it while texting Grant. Then she'd gone into Cartier and come back out. She looked at the partition, at Marcus's broad shoulders on the other side. People like him. The thought came unbidden, shaped by 1,000 small comments from her mother, from Grant, from the world she'd grown up in. People like him can't be trusted. They see an opportunity and they take it. Her face flushed hot with anger and fear. Pull over, she said into the intercom. Her voice shook. Miss St. James? I said pull over, now. The limo eased to the curb on a busy downtown street. Marcus put it in park and turned slightly, his expression guarded. Elena opened the partition herself, sliding it down with a sharp motion. Where is it? She demanded. Marcus's eyebrows drew together. Where is what? My bracelet. My grandmother's diamond tennis bracelet. I had it this morning, and now it's gone. His face went very still. I don't know anything about your bracelet, Miss St. James. I left it on the seat when I went into Cartier. You were alone with the car. The temperature in the limo seemed to drop 20 degrees. Marcus turned fully in his seat to face her. Are you accusing me of stealing from you? I'm saying the bracelet was here, and now it's not. And you were the only person who had access to this car. His eyes hardened. Something shut down behind them, and Elena felt a strange pang of loss, though she didn't understand why. I did not take your bracelet, he said quietly. Each word was precise, controlled. I have never taken anything from you. Then where is it? I don't know. You're lying. The words hung in the air between them like poison. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. She saw his chest rise and fall with measured breaths. Then he reached down and unlocked all the doors. The click echoed in the silence. He stepped out of the car and came around to her door, opening it wide. The cold air rushed in. Get out, Elena said. What are you doing? Marcus pulled the car keys from his pocket and held them out to her. I quit. Her mouth fell open. You can't quit. I can, and I am. His voice was steady, but she heard the anger underneath it now, coiled tight. I have worked for your family for 8 months. I have been on time every single day. I have been respectful even when you have not. I have listened to you talk to me like I'm beneath you, like I'm invisible. But I will not. His voice rose slightly. I will not be called a thief. Marcus, my name is Mr. Thorne to you, he said, since we're not friends, since I'm just the help. He dropped the keys onto the leather seat beside her and stepped back. I need this job, he said, and for the first time, his voice cracked. I need this job to buy my garage, to build something that's mine, but I need my dignity more. He turned and started walking. Just walked away down the crowded Chicago sidewalk, his thin jacket no match for the wind that was picking up, carrying more snow with it. Elena sat frozen in the back of the limo, door hanging open, cold air pouring in. Wait, she called, but her voice was too small. He didn't turn around. She watched him disappear into the crowd. Her hands were shaking. She didn't know if it was from anger or fear or something else entirely. The car was still running. She climbed awkwardly into the driver's seat, her wool coat bunching around her. She'd never driven the limo before. She'd barely driven anything in years, but she couldn't just sit here. She reached to adjust the seat, and her coat snagged on something. She looked down, tugging at the fabric. There, caught in the thick lining of her sleeve, tangled in the wool fibers, was her grandmother's bracelet. The air left Elena's lungs. She pulled the bracelet free with trembling fingers. It must have gotten caught when she was checking her phone, when she was sitting here, alone, before Marcus ever touched anything. She stared at it, at the diamonds that suddenly felt like glass, at the proof of her own ugly assumptions. Oh, God, she whispered. She looked at the passenger seat where Marcus always kept his things during long drives. His jacket was still there, the one he wore when he wasn't in uniform. And tucked into the side pocket was something she'd never noticed before. A small box wrapped in simple brown paper. No bow, no card on the outside. Elena reached for it with shaking hands. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound sketchbook, vintage, beautiful, with creamy, thick pages. A note was tucked inside the front cover. The handwriting was strong and neat. For the sketches on your napkins, you have a gift. Happy birthday. Marcus. Elena's vision blurred. She pressed her hand to her mouth. He'd noticed. All those times she'd doodled on napkins during long drives, thinking no one was paying attention. All those little charcoal drawings she'd made on scrap paper and thrown away, embarrassed by her mother's voice saying art was a waste of time. He'd seen her, really seen her, and she'd called him a thief. The shame crashed over her in waves. She thought of his face when she'd accused him, the way something had died in his eyes. She had to find him. Elena grabbed her phone and called the limo company. This is Elena St. James. I need Marcus Thorne's phone number immediately. I'm sorry, Miss St. James, the dispatcher said. Mr. Thorne just called. He's resigned. We can't give out personal information on former employees. Former? He just quit 20 minutes ago? Yes, ma'am. He was very clear. I'm dispatching another driver to your location now. No, I need to talk to him. I need to apologize, please. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. The line went dead. Elena looked out the windshield. The snow was falling harder now. The sky had turned the color of old coins. The radio in the limo crackled to life with a weather alert, blizzard warning, heavy snow and dangerous wind chills expected. Travel not recommended. She didn't care. Marcus took the bus. She remembered overhearing him talking to another driver once. He lived on the south side. The bus terminal wasn't far from here. Elena put the limo in drive. The vehicle lurched forward and she almost hit a taxi. Her heart hammered. She gripped the wheel the way she'd seen Marcus do and tried again, more carefully this time. The traffic was getting worse. Everyone was trying to get home before the storm hit. She navigated through the streets, guessing at his route, looking for bus stops. The wind picked up, rattling the heavy vehicle. Snow stuck to the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. There, on the corner of State and Madison, a tall figure in a thin jacket, walking with his hands shoved in his pockets, his breath visible in the freezing air. The bus stop sign swung wildly in the wind, and an orange notice was taped to it. Closed due to weather, Marcus. Elena's heart leaped. She pulled the limo toward the curb, too fast, and the back end fishtailed slightly. She recovered and rolled down the window. "Marcus!" she shouted. He kept walking, his jaw set. She drove alongside him slowly, calling out the window. "Marcus, please, I need to talk to you." He didn't even look at her. "I found the bracelet. It was in my coat. You were right. I was wrong." Finally, he stopped. He turned to face her, and the look on his face made her chest ache. "Good for you," he said flatly. "Now you know I'm not a thief. Congratulations. Please get in the car." "No. There's a blizzard coming." "I'll manage." Elena put the limo in park right there in the street. Horns blared behind her. She didn't care. She opened the door and stepped out into the wind. She was wearing 4-inch heels and a coat designed for looking expensive, not staying warm. The cold bit through her. Immediately, she walked toward him. "Marcus, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was awful. I should never have—" "You should get back in the car, Miss St. James." His voice was ice. "Not until you listen to me. I don't owe you anything, not my time, not my attention, and definitely not my forgiveness." The words hit like a slap. She deserved them. "You're right," she said. "You don't owe me anything, but please, just let me drive you home. It's not safe out here." "I'm not your responsibility anymore. You made that clear." "Marcus!" A horrible metallic screech cut through the air. They both looked up. A billboard loosened by the wind was tearing free from its mounting, swinging dangerously above the street. Marcus moved without thinking. He grabbed Elena and pulled her close to the buildings, away from the street. The billboard crashed down onto the sidewalk where she'd been standing, glass and metal scattering everywhere. They stood there, his arms around her, both breathing hard. He let go immediately and stepped back. "You need to get inside, now." "So do you." He looked at the sky. The snow was coming down in sheets now, the wind howling between the buildings. His thin jacket was already soaked. "Please," Elena whispered. "I know you're angry. I know I don't deserve your help. But please don't freeze to death because of my pride." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were resigned. "Fine," he said. "But I'm driving, and you're sitting in the back where you belong." The words stung, but she nodded. They got into the limo. Marcus in the driver's seat, Elena in the back. The partitions stayed down this time. The silence between them was heavy as stone. Marcus pulled back into traffic and headed south. The GPS flickered and died as they entered an area with poor reception. He knew these streets by heart anyway. Elena wanted to say something, anything, but every word felt inadequate. She clutched the sketchbook in her lap like a lifeline. "Thank you," she finally said, "for the gift. It's beautiful. It's the most thoughtful thing anyone's given me in years." Marcus's eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror. Their gazes met for a brief second, before he looked back at the road. "You're welcome," he said quietly. The snow was getting worse. Visibility was maybe 20 feet. "I really am sorry." Elena tried again. "What I said, what I assumed about you, it was wrong. It was what you were taught," Marcus said. His voice wasn't angry anymore, just tired. "Your mother sees me. Your fiancé sees me. They look at me and see a black man in a uniform, and that's all they need to know. I get it." "That's not an excuse." "No," he agreed. "It's not." They drove in silence for a while longer. The highway entrance was blocked by an accident. Marcus took a shortcut he knew, a 2-lane road that cut through a wooded area outside the city. "You should have kept the job," Elena said softly. "You needed it. For your garage." "I need to look at myself in the mirror more." Elena's throat tightened. She thought about all the mirrors in her penthouse, how she avoided her own eyes in every single one. The road curved ahead. Through the white curtain of snow, something moved. A deer, confused by the storm, bounded directly into their path. "Hold on!" Marcus yanked the wheel. The heavy limo turned sharply, too sharply. The back wheels hit a patch of black ice hidden beneath the snow. Elena felt the world tilt. She heard Marcus curse, saw him fighting the wheel. Then everything was spinning, white and gray and chaos, and there was a sound like thunder as they left the road and plowed into the ditch. The airbag exploded in Marcus's face. Elena was thrown against her seatbelt so hard the breath left her body. Then, silence. Just the tick of the cooling engine and the whistle of wind through broken glass. "Elena?" Marcus's voice, rough and urgent. "Elena, are you hurt?" She realized it was the first time he'd ever used her first name. I don't know," she managed. She heard him struggling with his seatbelt, then his door. He kicked it open. It was jammed against a tree, and freezing air poured in. A moment later, he was at her door, wrenching it open, his hands on her face, checking her pupils. "Look at me," he commanded. "Can you see me clearly?" "Yes." Her voice shook. "Can you move your arms, your legs?" She tried. Everything hurt, but everything moved. "I think so." There was blood running down the side of his face from where his head had hit something. She reached up instinctively to touch it, and he caught her hand. "I'm fine," he said. "We need to get out of here. Can you stand?" He helped her out of the car. Her ankle screamed in protest when she put weight on it, but she could walk. Barely. They stood in snow up to their knees, the limo tilted at a dangerous angle behind them, already being buried by the storm. Marcus pulled out his phone. No signal. He tried the car's radio. Dead. He looked around, his jaw tight. Elena saw him calculating, and she saw the moment he reached his conclusion. "We can't stay here," he said. "The car will lose heat in less than an hour, and we're too far from the road for anyone to see us." "What do we do?" "About a mile back, there was an old structure. Looked like a hunting cabin or something. We head there." "A mile?" Elena looked down at her heels, her thin coat. "I can't." "You can." His voice was firm. "Because if you don't, you'll die. So you can." She wanted to argue, wanted to cling to the car, to her phone, to everything she knew. But Marcus was already moving, and some survival instinct kicked in. She followed him into the white. The cold was unlike anything Elena had ever felt. It wasn't just uncomfortable. It was angry, vicious, clawing at every exposed inch of skin. Within minutes, she couldn't feel her fingers. Her designer heels sank into the snow with every step, and icy water seeped through the leather, freezing her feet. Marcus walked ahead, breaking a path through the drifts. His thin jacket was already covered in white, his dark hair dusted with snowflakes. But he moved with purpose, steady and sure, even as the wind tried to knock them sideways. Elena stumbled. Her heel caught on something buried beneath the snow, a root, a rock, she couldn't tell, and she pitched forward. Marcus caught her before she hit the ground, his strong hands gripping her arms. "You have to take those off," he said, looking down at her heels. "I'll freeze. You'll break your ankle, and then we're both dead." His voice was hard, but not unkind. "Take them off." She did, her fingers so numb she could barely manage the tiny buckles. The moment her stockinged feet touched the snow, she gasped. It felt like stepping onto burning coals, except the opposite. Pain shot up her legs. Marcus shrugged out of his jacket without a word. "No," Elena protested immediately. "You need that. You're wearing tights and a coat made for fashion shows? I've got long sleeves and I've worked outside in Chicago winters my whole life. Put it on." "Marcus?" "Elena." He looked directly at her, and she saw something in his eyes she couldn't quite name. "Let me do this, please." She took the jacket. It was still warm from his body. She pulled it on over her coat, and the extra layer made an immediate difference. But guilt gnawed at her as she watched him standing there in just his white uniform shirt, snowflakes already collecting on his shoulders. They started walking again. The world disappeared into white noise. Elena couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. She couldn't tell where the road ended and the forest began. Everything was just cold and wind and the horrible awareness that they were very small and very vulnerable. Her feet burned, then they went numb. She couldn't tell if that was better or worse. "How do you know where we're going?" she asked, her teeth chattering so hard she could barely get the words out. "I don't," Marcus admitted. "Not exactly, but I know we were heading south when we crashed, and the cabin was north of us. So we go north." "How do you know which way is north?" He pointed to a barely visible tree. "Moss grows mostly on the north side, and the wind is coming from the northwest. You can tell by how the snow is hitting us. We keep it on our left shoulder. We're heading roughly north." Elena stared at him. "How do you know that?" "My grandfather taught me. He used to take me camping downstate when I was a kid." Marcus's voice softened slightly at the memory. "Said a black man needed to know how to take care of himself in any situation. Never know when you might need it." The words settled over Elena like another layer of cold. How many small preparations had Marcus made throughout his life just to survive in a world that saw him as suspicious? How many extra skills had he learned? How many times had he been careful, aware, ready? She'd never had to think about any of that. She'd spent 26 years assuming the world would catch her if she fell. And here was Marcus, who'd spent his whole life knowing he had to catch himself. "I'm slowing you down," she said, watching him adjust his pace to match hers. "You could move faster without me." "I'm not leaving you." "Why not? I was horrible to you. You should hate me." Marcus stopped walking. He turned to face her, snow swirling between them. His face was serious, his eyes intense. "I probably should," he said. "But I don't, because I saw you, Elena, while you weren't looking. I saw you drawing on those napkins, and your face would change. You'd look free, like you'd escaped from something heavy. And I saw how you'd crumple them up the second you noticed I might see. Like you were ashamed of the one real thing about you." Elena's eyes burned, and it wasn't from the cold. "I saw how you'd smile when your phone rang," Marcus continued, "and then how that smile would die when you saw who it was. Your mom, your fiancé, even your friends. Every call made you smaller somehow. Stop, Elena whispered. Why? Because it's true? He stepped closer. You hurt me today. Really hurt me. But I also know what it's like to be taught wrong things. To have poison poured into you drop by drop until you don't even taste it anymore. The difference is, some of us don't get the choice to unlearn it slowly. We get it beat out of us by the world. You, though, you still have the chance to choose who you want to be. A sob broke from Elena's throat. She covered her mouth with frozen fingers, but she couldn't stop it. All the shame, all the realization of how small her life had become, how cruel she'd learned to be, it crashed over her. Marcus pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. She cried into his shirt, her tears hot against the frozen fabric. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, not just for today, for all of it. For every time I ignored you, every time I was cold, every time I treated you like furniture instead of a person. I know, he said quietly. His hand rubbed slow circles on her back. I know. They stood like that for a moment, just breathing together, before Marcus gently pulled back. We have to keep moving, he said. I can't feel my fingers anymore. They walked. Elena lost track of time. It could have been 20 minutes or 2 hours. Everything hurt. Her feet had gone from numb to a horrible pins and needles feeling that made every step agony. Her face felt frozen, her lips cracked and bleeding. But Marcus was worse. He'd given her his jacket. He was walking in just his shirt, his arms wrapped around himself, shivering so hard his teeth rattled. His lips had taken on a grayish tint. Marcus, she said, you need to take your jacket back. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're getting hypothermia. So are you. I'm wearing 2 coats. He shook his head stubbornly and kept walking. Elena grabbed his arm, forcing him to stop. Please, I can't. Her voice broke. I can't watch you die trying to save me, not after what I did. This isn't about what you did, Marcus said. His voice was getting slower, slightly slurred. Bad sign. This is about doing what's right. Then let's share it. We take turns, 15 minutes each. He started to argue, but another violent shiver went through him. He nodded. They traded the jacket back and forth as they walked. Elena felt the cold seep back in during her turns without it, but watching Marcus's shivering lessen when he wore it made it bearable. There, Marcus said suddenly, pointing ahead. Through the white, Elena could just make out a dark shape. Square. Man-made. The cabin, she breathed. They moved faster, fighting through the deepening snow. The structure resolved itself into a small hunting lodge, ancient and weathered, but solid. The windows were boarded up, the door nearly buried in a drift. Marcus kicked at the snow blocking the entrance, then threw his shoulder against the door. It held. He tried again, harder. The third time, the old wood gave way with a crack, and they stumbled inside. The cabin was dark and freezing, but the wind stopped howling immediately. The silence was almost shocking. Elena collapsed onto the floor, her whole body shaking. Marcus shut the door, blocking it with an old chair to keep it closed. Then he turned, surveying their shelter. 1 room, a fireplace along one wall, a few pieces of broken furniture, a rusty sink that probably hadn't worked in decades, and in the corner, a cot with a stained mattress that looked like it might have been home to various creatures over the years. Not the Ritz, Marcus said. His attempt at humor fell flat. His lips were blue. Fire, Elena managed through chattering teeth. We need fire. Marcus nodded. He moved to the fireplace, checking the chimney. Not blocked. That's good. He started gathering the broken furniture, a chair with missing legs, some old wooden crates, part of what might have been a shelf. Elena watched him work, feeling utterly useless. Her hands were shaking too badly to help. Her brain felt slow and thick. Marcus pulled out his wallet and extracted his last $5 bill. He crumpled it for kindling. Then he pulled a lighter from his pocket. He didn't smoke, Elena knew, but he kept it for emergencies. His hands shook as he tried to light it. Once, twice, 3 times, the spark wouldn't catch. "Come on," Marcus muttered. His fingers were too stiff, too cold. "Let me try," Elena said. She took the lighter, tucking her hands under her armpits for a minute to warm them slightly. Then she tried, pressing the wheel with her thumb. Spark. No flame. Again. Again. On the 6th try, a small flame appeared. "Yes!" She quickly held it to the crumpled bill. The paper caught, and Marcus carefully added small pieces of wood, building the fire slowly, nursing it like a newborn baby. The flames grew. Warmth began to radiate from the fireplace. Not much at first, but enough to feel like a miracle. They both moved closer, holding their hands out to the heat. Elena felt the blood returning to her fingers in painful prickles. Tears leaked from her eyes. "We made it," she whispered. Marcus nodded. He was staring at the fire like it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. They sat in silence for a while, just absorbing the warmth, letting their bodies remember what it felt like to not be dying. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Let me see your ankle." Elena had almost forgotten about it. The cold had numbed everything. But now that the feeling was returning, she realized it was throbbing badly. She extended her leg. Her stockings were torn and bloody. Marcus gently peeled them away, and they both winced. Her ankle was swollen to twice its normal size, already turning purple. "It's not broken," Marcus said, carefully rotating it. Elena hissed in pain. "Sorry, but you can move it, which is good. Probably a bad sprain." "How do you know?" "Twisted my ankle playing basketball in high school. Kept playing on it like an idiot. This looks about the same." He glanced around the cabin. "We need to keep it elevated and get some ice on it. But given our situation, elevation is the best we can do." He helped her move to the cot, propping her foot up on the remains of a wooden crate. Then he noticed the blood on his own face, crusted and dry. "Your turn," Elena said. She reached for the cleanest corner of her coat and went to the door, scooping up some snow. "Come here." Marcus sat beside her on the cot. Elena carefully cleaned the cut on his temple. It wasn't deep, but head wounds bled a lot. He'd have a nasty bruise. This close, she could see every detail of his face, the strong line of his jaw, the kind eyes that had seen her when no one else bothered to look, the small scar above his eyebrow that she'd never noticed before. "How'd you get this?" she asked, touching the scar gently. "Fight when I was 16. Kid called my mom a name. I didn't react well." He smiled slightly. "She lectured me for an hour about not using violence to solve problems. Then she made the best mac and cheese I'd ever tasted and told me she was proud I'd defended her honor." "She sounds wonderful." "She was." His voice went soft. "Breast cancer, 5 years ago." "I'm so sorry." "Yeah, me too." Elena finished cleaning his wound. Their faces were inches apart now. She could feel his breath on her skin, see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving my life, for not leaving me out there, for being a better person than I deserved." "Elena, no, let me say this." She took a shaky breath. "I've been living half a life, going through motions, doing what I'm told, being who my mother wants me to be. And the worst part is, I knew it. I felt how wrong it all was, but I was too scared to change, too comfortable. And now? Now I'm sitting in a freezing cabin, hurt and exhausted, and I feel more alive than I have in years. She laughed, and it came out slightly hysterical. That's crazy, right? No, Marcus said seriously. Sometimes it takes almost dying to remember you're alive. They held each other's gaze. The fire crackled. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but in here, in this tiny space, there was warmth. There was safety. Marcus reached up and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. You should rest. It's going to be a long night. What about you? I'll keep the fire going. We should take shifts. Elena, your ankle is fine for sitting and occasionally throwing wood on a fire. She squeezed his hand. We're in this together, okay? He looked like he wanted to argue, but then he just nodded. Okay, together. They found a protein bar in Marcus's pocket, somehow surviving the crash, and split it, making each half last as long as possible. It barely touched their hunger, but it was something. As the fire burned down to embers and Marcus rebuilt it, Elena felt exhaustion pulling at her. But she forced herself to stay awake, to take her shift so Marcus could rest. Tell me about the garage, she said. The one you're going to build? Marcus looked surprised. You want to hear about that? I do. So he told her about how he'd been working on cars since he was 12, learning from his uncle who ran a small repair shop. How he'd saved every dollar he could, working double shifts, taking every job offered. How he dreamed of a place that was his, where he could restore classic cars, where craftsmanship mattered more than speed. I want it to be beautiful, he said, his voice full of longing. Not some grimy garage with oil stains and broken equipment. I want it clean, organized, professional. A place where people feel respected when they bring their cars. Where I can take my time and do it right. What would you call it? Elena asked. Thorn Restoration. He smiled self-consciously. Simple, but honest. It's perfect, Elena said, and she meant it. They talked through the night, trading shifts by the fire. Marcus told her about his friend Joe, who kept telling him he was working too hard, that he needed to date more, live a little. Elena told him about her art, how she used to paint in college before her mother convinced her it was impractical, how she'd switched to business school and hated every minute. Why'd you stop? Marcus asked. Painting, I mean. Elena thought about it. I guess I was scared. Scared I wasn't good enough. Scared of disappointing my mother. Scared that if I actually tried and failed, I'd have nothing left to dream about. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, Marcus said gently. I know. Elena looked at the flames. I've been living scared for so long, I forgot what it felt like to want something real. And now? She turned to him. Now I want to know what it feels like to be brave. The fire painted his face in warm light and shadow. He reached out and took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. You walked a mile through a blizzard in heels, he said. I'd say that's pretty brave. That wasn't bravery. That was you dragging me along. No. His voice was firm. I showed you the path, but you walked it yourself. Nobody can do that for you. Elena felt something crack open in her chest. Some sealed-off place that she'd been protecting for so long. And what rushed in wasn't fear or doubt. It was possibility. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He stiffened for just a second, then relaxed, his arm coming around her carefully. Is this okay? She whispered. Yeah, he said quietly. This is okay. They sat like that, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, the fire warming them both. And Elena realized something. She felt safe. Not the superficial safety of money or status or locked doors. Real safety. The kind that came from being seen, being known, and being valued anyway. Her eyes drifted closed. She fought to stay awake, but the warmth and exhaustion were too much. Sleep, Marcus murmured. I've got the fire. Promise you'll wake me? Promise. She believed him. Elena slept, and for the first time in months, she didn't dream of obligations or expectations or the weight of becoming someone she didn't recognize. She dreamed of hands covered in charcoal, of canvas stretched tight, of laughter that came easy and real. When she woke, morning light was seeping through the cracks in the boarded windows. The storm had stopped. The cabin was quiet except for the crackling fire. Marcus was sitting by the fireplace, feeding it another piece of wood. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed, his face drawn. He'd let her sleep while he stayed awake all night, keeping them warm. Marcus, she said, you were supposed to wake me. He turned, and despite his exhaustion, he smiled. You needed rest more than I did. That's not... The sound of rotors cut through her protest. They both froze, listening. A helicopter, getting closer. Marcus stood quickly, going to the door. He pushed it open, and they both stepped out into blinding white. The sun was reflecting off fresh snow, everything brilliant and pure. The helicopter appeared over the trees, red and white, descending toward a clearing about 100 yards away. They found us, Elena breathed. Marcus shielded his eyes, watching the helicopter land. That's a private search chopper. Expensive. Elena's stomach sank. She knew exactly who could afford a private search helicopter. Sure enough, as the rotors slowed, a figure jumped out. Tall, in a designer parka, moving with aggressive confidence. Grant. He spotted them and started running through the snow, his face twisted with anger. Behind him, 2 police officers on snowmobiles were pulling up. Elena! Grant shouted. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? Elena's exhaustion turned to confusion. What? No, he... Grant grabbed her, pulling her away from Marcus, his hands rough on her arms. It's okay. You're safe now. I'm here. Grant, stop. You're hurting me. We've been searching all night. Grant's voice was rising, playing to the approaching police officers. After the limo company called and said there'd been an incident, that my fiancé was missing with her driver who'd just quit. It wasn't like that, Elena tried to say, but Grant was already advancing on Marcus. You son of a bitch, Grant snarled. You crashed the car, drag her out here to God knows where. I saved her life, Marcus said quietly. His face had gone carefully neutral, the expression Elena now recognized as his armor. Saved her? You kidnapped her. That's not what happened. Elena pulled away from Grant. Marcus drove us to safety. The storm. Officers, Grant called to the approaching police. This man is her employee? He had no right to take her anywhere. She could have died out here because of his incompetence. One of the officers approached Marcus. Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. Answer some questions. Of course, Marcus said evenly. But Elena saw his hands clench at his sides. No! Elena stepped between Marcus and the officer. He didn't do anything wrong. There was a deer in the road. We crashed. He saved my life. He kept me warm all night. If it weren't for him, I'd be dead. Ma'am, you're clearly disoriented, Grant said, his voice dripping with false concern. You've been through a trauma. Let the professionals handle this. I'm not disoriented. Elena's voice rose. I'm telling you what happened. Grant grabbed her arm again, harder this time, pulling her toward the helicopter. "We're getting you to a hospital. You're not thinking clearly." Elena looked back at Marcus. He was standing very still, watching her with those kind, patient eyes, the same eyes that had seen her when no one else bothered to look. And she saw something else there too, a question. "Who are you going to be?" She opened her mouth to scream, to fight, to tell Grant exactly where he could shove his concern. But then her mother's voice echoed in her head. "Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass the family. Do what's expected." The officer was leading Marcus away. Grant was pulling her toward the helicopter. Everything was moving too fast. Marcus looked back at her one more time, and in that moment, she saw the hope in his eyes dim. Saw him accept what he'd probably always known, that she would choose her comfortable life over the truth. Over him. He turned away, and Elena said nothing. The helicopter lifted off 10 minutes later. Through the window, Elena watched Marcus get smaller and smaller, standing in the snow beside a police snowmobile, alone. She pressed her hand against the glass, her throat tight with words she couldn't seem to say. Grant sat beside her, talking into his phone, already spinning the story for the press. Near-death experience, driver's negligence, incompetence, traumatic for Elena. Each word was a nail in a coffin. Each word buried the truth deeper. Elena looked down at her hands. They were still dirty from the fire. Still smelled like smoke and survival, and the moment when she'd been most alive, and she'd just let them take it all away without a fight. The flight back to Chicago took 20 minutes, the longest 20 minutes of her life. The penthouse felt like a museum, cold, sterile, full of expensive things that meant nothing. Elena sat on her white leather couch, her ankle wrapped in a professional bandage, ice pack resting on top. A doctor Grant hired had already examined her, declared her miraculously unharmed except for the sprain and some minor bruising, and left with instructions to rest. Rest. As if she could. Patricia St. James stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, her voice crisp and businesslike. "Yes, that's correct. The driver's negligence caused the accident. My daughter is traumatized but recovering. No, we won't be pressing charges at this time, but the company should expect a lawsuit. Of course. Thank you." She ended the call and turned to Elena. "That's handled. The limo company is terminating him with cause, which means no severance, no references. They're also putting a note in his file that will make it nearly impossible for him to get hired anywhere else in the transportation industry." Elena's stomach turned to ice. "You did what?" "I protected you, darling. Protected our family's reputation." "Mom, he didn't—" "Elena, please." Patricia's voice sharpened. "You've been through something horrible. You're not thinking clearly. This man, this Marcus person, put you in danger. He saved my life. He crashed your car and dragged you into the wilderness." Patricia's composure cracked slightly. "Do you have any idea how worried I was? How this looks? My daughter, stranded overnight with the hired help?" The words hit like a slap. "The hired help? He's a person, Mom, a human being who should have done his job properly." Patricia's voice went cold again. "I know you're young and sheltered, Elena. I know these situations can feel confusing, but you're experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. It's common in trauma situations. You're confusing gratitude for survival with actual feelings. That's not what this is, isn't it?" Patricia moved closer, her face softening in that calculated way that meant she was about to deliver a killing blow disguised as concern. "Sweetheart, you have a life, a real life. Grant is a good man from a good family. You're set to marry in 6 months. You have a position on the board of directors. You have everything any woman could want." "I don't want any of it." The words came out before Elena could stop them. They hung in the air, like smoke. Patricia's expression went hard as marble. "Don't be ridiculous." "I'm not being ridiculous. I'm being honest for the first time in years." Elena stood up, ignoring the pain in her ankle. "I hate the board meetings. I hate pretending to care about profit margins and stock prices. I hate Grant. I hate this apartment. I hate—" "That's enough." Patricia's voice could have cut glass. "No, it's not. It's not nearly enough." Elena felt something breaking loose inside her, something that had been tied down for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "I hate what I've become. I hate that I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself. I hate that the only time I felt real in the last year was when I was freezing to death in a cabin with a man I'd treated like garbage." Patricia stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "This is absurd. You're clearly more affected by this incident than I thought. I'm calling Dr. Chen, getting you something to help you calm." "Down! I don't need to calm down!" Elena's voice rose, cracking with emotion. "I need to wake up, and I need you to stop making decisions for me like I'm a child. You're acting like a child. I'm acting like someone who finally realized her life is a cage." The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia's face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. When she spoke, her voice was cold enough to freeze blood. "Fine. Have your little breakdown. Scream and cry and act like your life is so terrible. But when you're done being dramatic, you will remember who you are. You will remember what this family stands for, and you will do what's expected of you." She picked up her purse and walked to the door. "I'll be back tomorrow when you've come to your senses. Try not to do anything else stupid." The door closed with a quiet click that felt louder than a slam. Elena stood in the empty apartment, shaking. Her ankle throbbed. Her hands hurt. Everything hurt. But she'd said it. She'd finally said it out loud. The truth felt like swallowing glass, but at least it was real. She limped to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked, for the first time in forever. Her makeup was gone, washed away by melted snow and tears. Her hair was a tangled mess. Her expensive clothes were ruined, stained, and torn. She looked terrible. She looked alive. Her phone buzzed. A text from Grant. "Dinner at my place tonight, 7 p.m. We need to discuss the wedding timeline. This incident put us behind schedule." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Do you need anything?" Just the wedding timeline. Elena picked up her phone and typed, "We need to talk." Grant. "That's what dinner is for." Elena. "No, we need to talk now. About us." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Grant. "If this is about yesterday, stop. You're being emotional. We'll talk when you're calmer." She stared at the message, at the casual dismissal, the assumption that her feelings were just noise to be managed, and she made a decision. Grant's penthouse was even bigger than Elena's, all glass and steel and aggressive masculinity. He opened the door in slacks and a button-down, drink already in hand. "Finally," he said, not even greeting her. "I was about to send the car back for you. Why'd you take a taxi?" "I don't want your car," Elena said, stepping inside. Grant frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Elena looked around the apartment she'd been in 100 times. The expensive art that Grant bought because his decorator said it was investment quality. The furniture that looked good but felt like sitting on concrete. The complete absence of anything personal, anything real. "It means I don't want a lot of things anymore." Grant took a sip of his scotch. "Elena, if this is about the driver situation, I already told you. His name is Marcus." "What?" "His name. It's Marcus. Marcus Thorne. and you've never once used it. Grant's frown deepened. Why would I need to know the driver's name? Because he's a person. Okay, you're being weird. Grant set down his drink. Look, I get it. You had a scary experience, but you're fine now. The guy is gone. Problem solved. Now we need to focus on... I'm breaking off the engagement. The words came out clear and calm. No hesitation, no doubt. Grant stared at her like she'd started speaking in tongues. What? I'm breaking off the engagement. I don't want to marry you, Grant. I don't love you. I don't even like you very much. His face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, and finally landing on anger. Are you serious right now? After everything I've done for you? I organized a search party. I got you the best doctor. I've been handling all the PR. You've been handling? Grant, you told the police Marcus kidnapped me. You lied. I protected you. From what? From the man who saved my life? Elena shook her head. No, you protected your image, your story, the version where you're the hero and he's the villain. Grant's face was turning red. This is about him, isn't it? The driver? Jesus Christ, Elena, did he mess with your head that badly? He didn't mess with my head. He showed me kindness. He saw me as a person instead of an accessory. And yes, that apparently was enough to make me realize what a terrible mistake I've been making. This is insane. You're throwing away everything, our future, our families, the merger, over some random black guy who... Stop! Elena's voice went hard. Finish that sentence, and I walk out right now. Grant caught himself, but the damage was done. She'd seen it. The ugly truth that had always been there, hiding behind expensive suits and polite smiles. Look, Grant said, trying a different approach. His voice went soft, manipulative. Baby, I know you're confused. Trauma does that. But think about what you're saying. Think about your life, your mother, your position. You really want to throw all that away? Yes. For what? Some fantasy about the driver who was nice to you during a crisis? He was doing his job, Elena. That's it. And now he's done. He's nothing. Elena looked at Grant, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for the first time. Saw the cruelty dressed up as pragmatism, the ego disguised as confidence, the emptiness pretending to be sophistication. You're right, she said quietly. Someone here is nothing, but it's not Marcus. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger. The enormous diamond caught the light, throwing rainbows across the room. She set it on the glass coffee table with a soft click. Don't call me again. Grant grabbed her arm as she turned to leave. You'll regret this. Do you hear me? You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've given up, and I won't take you back. Nobody will want you after this. Elena pulled her arm free. Good. I don't want anyone who thinks like you. She walked out, and this time, when the door closed behind her, it felt like freedom. The taxi dropped her outside a modest apartment building on the south side. The neighborhood was nothing like where Elena had grown up. Small houses with chain-link fences, corner stores with neon signs, kids playing basketball in driveways despite the lingering snow. It was real. It was lived in. It was beautiful in a way her world had never been. Elena checked the address the limo company had reluctantly given her after she'd threatened to call a lawyer. 3rd floor, apartment 3B. She climbed the stairs slowly, her ankle protesting. Her heart was hammering. What if he didn't want to see her? What if he'd already written her off as another rich person who'd let him down? What if she'd waited too long? She knocked on the door. Footsteps. The door opened. But it wasn't Marcus. It was another man, early 30s, wearing a Bulls jersey and holding a beer. He looked at Elena with immediate suspicion. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Marcus Thorne. Does he live here?" The man's expression hardened. "Who's asking?" "My name is Elena St. James. I need to talk to him. It's important." Recognition flashed across his face, followed by anger. "You've got some nerve showing up here." "I know. But please, I just need 5 minutes." "Lady, you got him fired. Blacklisted. You know what that means? It means every garage, every transportation company, every job that could help him save for his dream, gone. Because your fiancé made some calls and your mommy played the victim." Each word was a punch to Elena's gut. "I didn't know." "You didn't know? You were there. You stood there and let them take him away and you said nothing." "You're right." Elena's voice cracked. "You're absolutely right. I was a coward. I let them lie about him and I didn't fight back. But I'm here now. I broke off my engagement. I told my mother to leave. I'm trying to fix this. Please. Where is he?" The man, Joe, she realized, Marcus's friend, studied her face, looking for lies, for tricks, for anything false. "He's at the scrapyard," Joe said finally, packing up his tools. Since he can't get work, he's selling his equipment to pay rent. Elena felt sick. "Which scrapyard?" "Why should I tell you? So you can hurt him more?" "So I can apologize. So I can try to make this right. So I can—" She stopped, her voice thick with tears. "So I can tell him that he was right about me. That I had the chance to choose who I wanted to be, and I chose wrong, but I'm choosing again now. Please." Joe stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Henderson's Auto Salvage, off Pulaski. But if you're playing games, if you hurt him again, you'll have me to deal with. And I'm not as nice as Marcus." "Thank you," Elena whispered. She took another taxi to the salvage yard. It was a sprawling lot of rusted car bodies and scattered parts, surrounded by a chain-link fence. Through the gate, she could see a small garage building with its bay door open. And there was Marcus. He was loading tools into cardboard boxes, wrenches, sockets, diagnostic equipment. Each piece went in carefully, like he was packing away more than just metal. He was packing away his dreams. Elena's throat tightened. She pushed through the gate. Marcus looked up at the sound. When he saw her, his face went carefully blank. That armor, back in place. "Miss St. James?" he said, his voice flat. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you." "Well, you found me. Congratulations." He went back to packing. Elena walked closer, her heels crunching on gravel. She felt ridiculously out of place in her designer coat and expensive boots. Good. She should feel out of place. This was his world, and she was the intruder. "I need to apologize," she said. "You already did, in the cabin. It's fine." "It's not fine. Nothing about this is fine." She stopped a few feet away. "When Grant showed up with the police, when he started lying about what happened, I should have fought. I should have screamed. I should have told them all the truth. But you didn't." Still not looking at her. "But I didn't," she agreed, her voice breaking. "I stood there, and I let fear win. I let my mother's voice in my head win. I let everything I've been taught about staying quiet and not making scenes win. And you paid the price for my cowardice." Marcus stopped packing. He turned to face her, and the hurt in his eyes made her want to cry. "Do you know what the worst part was?" he asked quietly. "It wasn't getting arrested, wasn't even getting blacklisted, losing my job, watching my dream fall apart. The worst part was looking at you, waiting for you to speak up, and watching you choose silence." choose them over the truth, over me. I know. Do you? Do you really? His voice rose slightly. Because I've spent my whole life being invisible to people like you. Being dismissed, suspected, blamed. And, for one night in that cabin, I thought maybe I'd finally been seen. Really seen. But I was wrong. You weren't wrong. Then why didn't you fight for me? The question hung in the cold air between them. Because I was scared, Elena said simply. Scared of my mother's anger. Scared of losing my comfortable life. Scared that if I stood up to Grant and my family, I'd have nothing left. But I was wrong. Because what I had wasn't real. It was just expensive emptiness. And I'd rather have nothing real than everything fake. She stepped closer. I broke off the engagement. I told my mother I'm done living her life, and I know that doesn't fix what I did to you. I know an apology isn't enough, but I need you to know that you changed me. That night in the cabin, you showed me what it feels like to be brave, to be real, to be seen. And I'm not going back. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's great for you, Elena. Really. I'm glad you had your awakening. But I've still lost everything. My job, my reputation, my savings plan. All because you couldn't find your voice when it mattered. I know, and I want to help fix that. I don't want your charity. It's not charity. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It's a business proposal. Marcus frowned. What? She handed him the paper. It was a sketch, not as good as a professional architect's rendering, but detailed and careful. A garage. Clean, organized, professional. Beautiful. I've been drawing for the past 2 days, Elena said. Planning, thinking. I have money, Marcus, a lot of it. Most of it from my grandmother's trust. My mother can't touch it, and I don't want to spend it on another meaningless luxury. I want to invest it in something real. Marcus stared at the sketch. Elena, I'm not offering to hire you. I'm offering a partnership, 50-50. You bring the skill, the knowledge, the vision. I bring the capital and business management. We build Thorn. Restoration together. She paused. Actually, I was thinking, Thorn and St. James Restorations, if you'll have me? You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Elena's voice strengthened. I've spent 26 years being what other people wanted, doing what I was told, playing it safe, and it made me into someone I hated. Someone cruel and small. You saw past that, saw who I could be. Now I want to actually become that person, and I want to do it by helping you build your dream. Marcus looked from the sketch to her face, searching for something. This isn't about guilt, about trying to make yourself feel better? Maybe partly, Elena admitted. But mostly it's about choosing. Choosing to be brave, choosing to build something that matters, choosing... She stopped, her voice catching. Choosing you, if you'll let me. The silence stretched between them. Marcus set down the sketch and ran a hand over his face. You hurt me, he said finally. Really hurt me. I know. And I don't know if I can trust you. Trust that you won't bail when things get hard, when your family pushes back, when the reality of what you're giving up hits you. I don't know if you can trust me either, Elena said honestly. I can only promise to try, to show up, to fight when it matters. I can't undo what I did at that helicopter, but I can try to do better from here forward. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Then he bent down and picked up a wrench from one of his boxes. He held it out to her. You know what this is? A wrench? It's a tool, and tools only work if you use them properly. You have to learn how they work, respect what they can do, take care of them. He turned the wrench over in his hands. Relationships are the same way. They require work, real work, not just good intentions. I'm willing to work, Elena said softly. Are you willing to fail? To make mistakes? To have ugly conversations and hard days? Yes. Are you willing to deal with people judging you? Judging us? Elena thought about her mother's face. Grant's cruel words, the looks she'd get from her former friends. And she thought about Marcus's eyes across the fire, about the feeling of being truly seen. Yes, she said firmly. I'm willing. Marcus set the wrench down. Then I have one condition. Anything? This isn't a rescue. Not for you, not for me. I'm not your redemption project, and you're not my savior. We're partners, equals. We build this together, or we don't build it at all. Elena held out her hand. Partners, equals, together. Marcus looked at her hand for a moment. Then slowly, carefully, he reached out and took it. His hand was warm and calloused and strong. And when he pulled her closer, when she stepped into his arms, Elena felt something she'd never felt in Grant's expensive penthouse or her mother's controlled world. She felt home. This is going to be hard, Marcus murmured against her hair. Your family won't accept it. People will talk. We're going to face things you've never had to face before. I know. And we still have to work through what happened. You still have to earn back my trust. I know that too. Okay. He pulled back enough to look at her face. Then let's start with something simple. Are you hungry? Elena laughed, surprised. Starving, actually. There's a soul food place 2 blocks from here. Best mac and cheese in Chicago. My mom's favorite. That sounds perfect. Marcus grabbed his jacket, the same thin one he'd worn during the blizzard, and Elena started to take off her coat to give to him. He stopped her. Keep it, he said. But thank you for offering. They walked out of the salvage yard together, leaving the boxes of tools packed, but no longer being sold. They'd need them soon enough. As they walked down the street toward the restaurant, Marcus reached for her hand. Elena laced her fingers through his, and something in her chest loosened. She had no idea what she was doing. No plan, no safety net, no guaranteed outcome. Just a man who'd seen her at her worst and her best, a dream that terrified her, and a choice to be brave. It was nothing like the life she'd planned. It was everything she'd been missing. 6 months later, Elena stood in front of a building that didn't exist in her old life. It wasn't in the right neighborhood. Wasn't the right kind of investment. Wasn't something her mother would ever approve of. It was perfect. The sign above the bay doors read, Thorne and St. James Restorations, in clean, bold letters. Through the glass windows, she could see the shop floor, spotless concrete, organized tool chests, 3 lift bays, and along the back wall, a small office with windows overlooking the workspace. Her workspace. Their workspace. You're staring again, Marcus said, coming up beside her with 2 cups of coffee. I'm admiring. There's a difference? Staring is what you do at something you can't believe is real. Admiring is what you do at something you helped build. She took the coffee, steam curling up in the cool morning air. I'm admiring. Marcus smiled, that quiet smile that still made her heart skip. Grand opening is in 2 hours. You ready? Terrified, actually. Good. That means you care. He squeezed her hand. Come on, Joe's already inside arguing with the catering people about where to put the food table. They walked in together, and Elena felt that same surge of pride she got every time she entered this space. They'd spent months transforming an abandoned garage into this, something beautiful and functional and theirs. Joe was indeed arguing with a catering woman about table placement. He looked up when they entered and grinned. Finally! Tell this woman that the food goes by the office, not by the bay doors where people will track grease through it. The customer flow suggests, the caterer started. Joe's right, Elena said diplomatically, but maybe we can set up a satellite drink station near the entrance? Best of both worlds. The caterer considered this and nodded. Joe shot Elena a grateful look. In the past 6 months, Joe had gone from suspicious to grudgingly respectful to something like a friend. It hadn't been easy. Elena had to prove herself over and over, showing up on time, getting her hands dirty, learning the business from the ground up instead of just writing checks. She'd taken apart and reassembled an entire carburetor last month. It took her 4 tries, and Marcus had to help with the last few pieces, but she'd done it. Joe had actually applauded. How's the guest list looking? Joe asked, checking his phone. Good, Marcus said. Most of the neighborhood shops are sending people. A few car clubs, some potential clients who saw our website. And your people? Joe asked Elena carefully. Elena's smile dimmed slightly. My people aren't coming. Not even... No? She cut him off gently. Not even. The truth was, she'd sent her mother an invitation. A real one, handwritten, explaining what she was doing and why it mattered. Patricia had responded with a lawyer's letter outlining the terms of Elena's disinheritance from the family business and a formal request to stop using the St. James name in conjunction with inappropriate ventures. Elena had framed the letter and hung it in the office bathroom. Most of her old friends had vanished the moment she broke off the engagement. A few had reached out with fake concern, fishing for gossip. Only one, Sarah, a girl from college who'd always been different from the rest, had actually stayed in touch. She'd promised to come today. Grant had tried to contact her once, drunk texting at 2 a.m. about what a mistake she was making. She'd blocked his number. It hurt less than Elena expected, or maybe it hurt exactly as much as it should, and she was just stronger now. Well, our people are coming, Joe said firmly, and that's what matters. Real people who actually care. Marcus shot his friend a grateful look. The next hour was a blur of last-minute preparations. Elena arranged the portfolio of restoration projects they'd completed in the past 3 months. Classic cars they'd worked on, the before and after photos that showed what they could do. Marcus tested the lift systems one more time. Joe set up the music. At exactly 10 a.m., they opened the doors. The neighborhood came. Mrs. Chen from the grocery store 2 blocks over brought homemade dumplings. The Rodriguez family who owned the taqueria came with their 3 kids, who immediately started asking Marcus 1,000 questions about cars. Shop owners, families, people from the community center, where Elena had started teaching a free art class on weekends. Real people. Good people. People who shook Marcus's hand with respect and looked Elena in the eye instead of through her. Sarah showed up an hour in, looking nervous but genuine. She hugged Elena hard. This is amazing. I'm so proud of you. Thanks for coming. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this. Sarah looked around. This is real. Everything we had before, the parties, the clubs, the whole scene, that was just pretending to be alive. This is actually living. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Yeah, it really is. The afternoon unfolded in a warm blur. Marcus gave tours, explaining their restoration process, his face lighting up when he talked about preserving automotive history. Elena found herself talking to potential clients, discussing projects, feeling that same thrill she used to get from painting. Because this was art, too. Taking something broken and making it beautiful again. Around 3 p.m., a vintage convertible pulled up outside. Elena recognized it immediately. A 1967 Mustang in pristine condition. The same car she'd seen Marcus working on late at night for weeks, being mysterious about who it was for. Marcus appeared at her elbow, Come outside for a minute? What's going on? Just come. He led her out to the parking lot. The Mustang sat there gleaming in the afternoon sun, cherry red with a white interior, restored to absolute perfection. It's beautiful, Elena breathed. Who's it for? Marcus pulled a set of keys from his pocket and held them out. You. Elena's mouth fell open. What? You said once that you felt most alive when you were scared, when you were taking risks, being brave, choosing something real even if it was hard. He pressed the keys into her hand. So, I restored this for you. Because you took the biggest risk of all. You left everything you knew to build something that mattered. And I wanted you to have something that represents that. Something beautiful that you can actually touch. Elena couldn't speak. She looked at the car, at Marcus, at the keys in her shaking hand. The color, she managed. It's the same red you use in your paintings, I noticed. Of course he had. Marcus noticed everything. Elena threw her arms around him, and he caught her, lifting her slightly off the ground. She was crying and laughing at the same time, and she didn't care who was watching. I love you, she said against his neck. The first time she'd said it out loud, though she'd known it for months. Marcus set her down gently, his hands framing her face. I love you too. Have for a while now. Even when I was terrible to you? Even then, couldn't help it. He smiled. Though I like you much better now. I like me better now too. They kissed there in the parking lot, and Elena heard cheering from inside the shop. Joe, definitely, and probably half the crowd. When they pulled apart, Marcus gestured to the car. Want to take it for a spin? Right now? Why not? It's your car, your day, your life. Elena looked at the Mustang, then at the shop behind them, then at Marcus. This man who'd seen her, saved her, challenged her, loved her. Our life, she corrected. They drove through the city with the top down, wind whipping through Elena's hair. She felt wild and free and more herself than she'd ever been. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, his hand on her knee, looking completely at ease. Where are we going? He asked. I don't know, Elena admitted, laughing. I have no plan whatsoever. Good. Plans are overrated anyway. They ended up at the lakefront, parking and walking along the beach even though it was too cold for most people. Elena leaned against Marcus, his arm around her shoulders. Can I tell you something? She asked. Anything? When I was in that cabin with you, freezing and hurt and scared, I remember thinking that if I died right then, at least I'd felt real for a few hours. At least I'd been seen by someone who mattered. She turned to face him. I didn't die. But that version of me did. The Elena who lived small, who was afraid of everything, who let other people decide who she was. And I'm grateful for that. Even though it cost you your family, your old life? Especially because of that. She took his hand. My mother called me last week. Did I tell you? Marcus shook his head. She said she'd be willing to reconcile if I came back. Left the garage, left you, married someone appropriate. She'd even reinstate my position on the board. Elena smiled. I told her no. How'd that feel? Like freedom. They stood there watching the waves, the city skyline behind them, the future ahead of them, uncertain and beautiful. I've been thinking, Marcus said carefully, about expansion. The shop's only been open 6 hours, and you're already thinking about expansion? Not the shop, us. He turned to face her fully. I know it's only been 6 months. I know we're still figuring things out. but I also know that I want to figure them out with you for the long term. Elena's heart started beating faster. Marcus, I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. We need more time. We need to make sure we can survive the hard parts, not just the romantic parts. But I want you to know that this is real for me. You're not some rebellion or adventure. You're not my way of getting back at the world for how it treated me. You're just you, and that's everything. Elena felt tears sliding down her face. You're everything to me, too. Yeah? Yeah. She laughed through her tears. You're annoying and stubborn, and you work too much, and you always put everyone else first even when you shouldn't. And I love every single thing about you. Even the annoying parts? Especially those. Marcus kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We should get back, Elena said reluctantly. People might still be at the shop. Let them wait. This moment is ours. So they stayed, watching the sunset, Marcus's arms around her, the future spread out before them like an open road. 1 year later, Elena stood in front of a canvas in the small studio space they'd built above the garage. Paint covered her hands, her shirt, her face. She didn't care. The painting was of hands. Marcus's hands specifically, holding a wrench, covered in engine grease, strong and capable and beautiful. She'd been working on it for weeks, trying to capture not just what they looked like, but what they represented. Skill, care, work that mattered. You're painting me again, Marcus said from the doorway. Elena didn't turn around. You're a good subject. You sit still. I'm literally in constant motion. You're still on the inside. That's what I'm painting. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. It's beautiful. It's not done yet. Still beautiful. He pressed a kiss to her neck. Joe just locked up downstairs. You ready to call it a night? Elena set down her brush and turned in his arms. Actually, I have something to tell you. Good something or bad something? Good, I think. She took a breath. I got a call today from a gallery on the north side. They saw my website and want to show my work. A whole series. They're calling it The Art of Restoration. Marcus's face lit up. Elena, that's amazing. It's also terrifying. What if nobody comes? What if the critics hate it? What if my mother somehow finds out and... Marcus put a finger on her lips. What if it's incredible? What if people love it? What if this is the start of something big? You really think so? I know so. I've seen your work. It's real and raw and honest. That's what matters. He paused. Though I do have one question. What? Are you painting me with my shirt on or off? Because if it's off, I need to hit the gym more. Elena burst out laughing. You're ridiculous. You love it. I really do. They went downstairs together, turning off lights, locking doors, leaving the shop, ready for tomorrow. Outside, the Mustang waited, still perfect, still theirs. Want to drive? Marcus asked, holding out the keys. Always. They drove through the city, the same route they'd taken that first day with the top down. But everything was different now. The shop was thriving. Marcus had 3 employees and a waiting list of clients. Elena's art was getting noticed. They had a life, messy and beautiful and real. I have something for you too, Marcus said as they pulled up to their apartment building. A modest place in a good neighborhood, nothing like Elena's old penthouse, but home in a way that place never was. What is it? He pulled a small box from his pocket. Elena's breath caught. I said I'd wait, Marcus said, his voice slightly shaky. Said we needed time to make sure this was real. Well, we've had time. We've had fights and makeups. We've built something together. We've survived your mother's lawyers and people's judgments and every obstacle the world threw at us. And I'm sure now, completely sure. He opened the box. The ring inside was simple, a small diamond on a silver band, nothing like the massive rock Grant had given her. It was perfect. Elena St. James, will you marry me? Elena looked at the ring, at Marcus's hopeful face, at the life they'd built together from broken pieces. Yes, she said, her voice strong and clear. Yes, absolutely yes. Marcus slipped the ring on her finger, and Elena realized she was crying again. Happy tears this time, the best kind. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Marcus kissed her, deep and sweet and full of promise. Always. They sat in the car for a long time, just holding each other, the city lights twinkling around them. Elena thought about where she'd been a year ago. Cold, scared, lost in a blizzard both literal and metaphorical. And she thought about where she was now. Warm, loved, found. You know what's funny? She said. What? I spent my whole life trying to stay safe, trying to avoid risk and danger and anything that might hurt me. And the scariest thing I ever did, walking away from my old life, choosing you, building something real, that's what saved me. Marcus smiled. Sometimes the scariest path is the only one worth taking. Yeah. Elena kissed him again. Sometimes it really is. They went upstairs to their apartment. Tomorrow they'd go back to work, Marcus to his restorations, Elena to her painting. They'd deal with challenges and setbacks, and the million small difficulties of building a life together. But tonight, they just held each other. Two people who'd found their way through a storm and discovered something more valuable than safety. They'd found truth. They'd found courage. They'd found home. And they'd found each other. 2 years later, the gallery was packed. Elena stood in the corner, watching people examine her paintings. 20 canvases, all depicting moments of restoration. Cars being rebuilt, buildings being renovated, hands working with tools. And in the center, the largest canvas. A portrait of 2 people in a fireplace's glow, building something beautiful from broken pieces. Stop hiding, Marcus said, appearing with 2 glasses of champagne. It's your show. I'm not hiding, I'm observing. You're terrified. Also true. Elena took the champagne. What if they hate it? They don't. Look. Marcus pointed to the red dots appearing next to paintings. Sold, sold, sold. Elena's mouth fell open. Oh my God. Told you. You're incredible. He kissed her temple. Come on. The gallery owner wants to introduce you to a collector from New York. As they walked through the crowd, Elena caught sight of a familiar figure near the entrance. Blonde hair in a perfect chignon. Designer suit. Carefully neutral expression. Her mother. Patricia St. James stood looking at the centerpiece painting, the one of the 2 people by the fire. She stood very still, her face unreadable. Elena's first instinct was to run, to hide, to pretend she hadn't seen her. But she wasn't that person anymore. I'll be right back, she told Marcus. He followed her gaze and tensed. Do you want me to come with you? No. This is something I need to do alone. Elena walked over to her mother. Up close, Patricia looked older, tired, still impeccably dressed, still radiating control, but something was different. Mom, Elena said quietly. Patricia turned. For a moment, neither spoke. Your work is very good, Patricia said finally. Better than I expected. Thank you. More silence. Then, is that meant to be you, in the painting? Yes. Patricia looked at the canvas for a long moment. At the hands building something together. At the fireplace's warm glow. At the expression of peace on both faces. You look happy, Patricia said. There was something in her voice Elena couldn't quite identify. Not approval exactly, but maybe acknowledgement. I am happy. With him? The driver? With Marcus? My fiancé? My partner? My best friend? Elena kept her voice steady. Yes, with him. Patricia's jaw tightened. You gave up everything for this. No, I gave up nothing for everything. They stood side by side, looking at the painting. So much unsaid between them. Years of hurt and disappointment and fundamental disagreement about what made a life worth living. I came to tell you something, Patricia said finally. Your father, he's sick, cancer, stage 4. Elena felt her knees weaken. What? He has maybe 6 months. He asked me to reach out, to tell you he'd like to see you. Before. The gallery noise faded away. Elena gripped the champagne glass so hard she thought it might shatter. He threw me out, she whispered. You both did. I know. Patricia's voice cracked slightly. And I stand by it. I still think you made a terrible mistake. I still think you threw away a good life for a foolish one. But your father? She paused. Your father always was softer than me, and he's dying, and he wants to see his daughter. Elena looked at her mother, really looked, and saw something she'd never seen before. Fear, grief, maybe even regret, buried deep under layers of pride. I'll think about it, Elena said. That's all I ask. Patricia started to leave, then stopped. You do look happy in the painting. I've never seen you look like that in real life. That's because this is the first time I've actually been living my life. Patricia nodded slowly. Perhaps? She looked at Marcus, who was watching from across the room, protective and patient. He's good to you? He's the best thing that ever happened to me. Then maybe... Patricia stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. Maybe that's worth something? It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall. A small one, but it was there. Patricia walked out of the gallery without looking back. Marcus came over immediately. You okay? My father's dying, Elena said, the words feeling surreal. He wants to see me. Then we'll go see him. We? You think I'm letting you face that alone? Marcus took her hand. Whatever you decide, wherever you need to go, I'm with you. That's what partners do. Elena leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. I don't know if I can forgive them. You don't have to. But maybe you can say goodbye. Get closure. End that chapter on your terms instead of theirs. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention before. Elena laughed, despite everything. I love you. Love you too. He squeezed her hand. Come on. You've got collectors to meet and paintings to sell. We'll deal with family stuff tomorrow. They walked back into the crowd together, and Elena realized something. No matter what happened with her parents, no matter how that chapter ended, she'd already won. She'd found herself. She'd found love. She'd found the courage to build a life that mattered. Everything else was just details. The show was a success. 15 paintings sold that night, 3 to major collectors. Gallery reviews called Elena's work raw, honest, and deeply moving. One critic wrote, St. James paints restoration not just as a physical process, but as an emotional and spiritual one. Her work asks us, what would we look like if we let ourselves be rebuilt? Elena read that review 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She'd learned the answer to that question. She'd look like someone who'd walked through a blizzard and come out stronger. Someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself into something better. Someone who'd learned that the best view wasn't from the back seat of a limo, but right next to the person who saw you, really saw you, and loved you anyway. She'd look like herself. Finally, truly, herself. And that was worth everything she'd given up. The end.